Now, we know that cyber criminals are always working overtime, working tirelessly to gain access to our personal information. They have lots of tactics to do this. And Tsulu chats to SABRIC acting CEO Susan Potgieter on the dangers of internet banking and how we can stay protected.
In order to gain access to your online banking facilities to steal your money, criminals may use various tactics, including phishing and the installation of malware in order to gain access to your confidential information. We are joined yet again by SABRIC's acting CEO, Susan Potgieter, to chat to us about how best we can go about protecting ourselves and preventing internet banking fraud. Susan, thank you once again for joining us. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me.
From phishing to SIM swaps to malware, these are all ways that cybercriminals can go about accessing our confidential information. What are they and what are the dangers of these methods?
Right. Let's start with phishing. Phishing is intended to trick the victim into disclosing their personal information, or rather their confidential information. We must differentiate between personal and confidential. Confidential information must always stay confidential and never be shared. So what they do is they will send out spam mails, and in the spam there'll be a hyperlink enticing the recipient to click on it, and criminals are happy if 1 out of 10,000 actually respond. Very, very important to remember never to click on links because those, unfortunately, that tactic used by criminals is still very, very successful and they're still doing it very frequently. Clicking on the hyperlink will take you to a spoof website and you will fill in your username and your password. That information, of course, then is received by the criminals and they actually have it in order to then log onto your internet banking profile. So that's what phishing is all about. It's literally to steal your logon credentials. When it comes to malware, we know that criminals deploy malware by way of attaching attachments, and those will contain malicious code that is pre-configured to actually gather certain bits of information that are then sent to criminals who would then also use that information. And they can then log onto that banking platform as if they were you. But they can't transact yet because remember, for the money to move, you need the one-time PIN. And that's where the SIM swap comes in. Now that involves tricking the mobile service provider into believing that they are the real account holder and then getting them to issue them with a replacement SIM. Once that's activated, they have everything they need. And then, of course, they would send the money where they want the money to go. And usually what happens is, they withdraw the money immediately from an ATM.
Sure. I mean, based on what you've just said, there's no doubt that these criminals are getting smarter and smarter. So having said that, what are banks doing? What are security companies doing to make sure that this problem is curbed?
Right. Banks, for example, monitor transactions. So they literally watch your behavior on your internet banking platform, and as soon as there's a transaction that's out of character, they'll be alerted to it. And then, some people will tell you they got a phone call from the bank wanting to verify a transaction. That's how those transactions actually are, come to the fore, is through the monitoring. So they do that. What they also do is they have technology in place that actually looks at the digital footprint of the device accessing the platform, and that's why sometimes if you access your banking, your banking platform from an unknown computer, you might run into some difficulties because the system doesn't recognize you as the legitimate user. So those are the kind of things that they do.
Now, for someone who doesn't have this knowledge that you are sharing with us today, what are some of the signs that they can look out for that their personal information is being compromised?
First and foremost, I think you need to understand the relationship between financial loss at the end of the day and protecting your confidential data. Confidential information must never be shared with anybody, even if somebody tells you from the bank. Don't believe it. And even if they are from the bank, confidential is confidential. You don't disclose that information. So if you get an SMS that says that 50,000 Rand's gone off your account and you didn't do that transaction, it's critical that you immediately contact your bank, because as soon as they're alerted, they can intervene and you can prevent further losses.
Susan, prevention, as you mentioned, is always best. What are some of the tips we can use to prevent internet banking fraud?
Right. First and foremost, we're speaking here about internet banking. Very, very important to know that the device that you use to do your internet banking must be a secure device. If you're using your own devices, which you should, also make sure that the operating system is updated and that you've got updated antivirus packages on those devices so that you know that you are protected. Don't use internet cafes or hotel lobbies or unknown computers to do so, and make sure that your own device is in fact protected. And I suggest that you find lots more tips on our social media platforms or website and follow the advice, because it will really, really assist to prevent you from falling victim to these crimes.
Thank you very much, Susan. As you've heard, criminals are always at large, and it's our responsibility to stay vigilant in order to prevent becoming a statistic. Next week, Susan joins us to chat to us about the dangers of online shopping and how we can stay protected.
We are brave, innovative, everywhere. We are SABRIC.